Okay, I'm going to say good morning, happy Monday, and we are going to look at objection handling because I don't know about you guys, but I'm hearing lots of fun new objections in the marketplace, and I think we all should take a moment to have a great response or two. You all feel good about that idea? So
Yes.
I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. And let's go ahead and make this big. I'm going to start from the beginning, slideshow, admit, slideshow. All right, here we go. Everybody can see what's going on. We're going to go over a little bit about what objections are, and then we're going to jump into how to do it. Sound good? All right, let's talk a little bit about an objection, really. It's not a rejection. I think a lot of people, they get freaked out by an objection. It is really a request for more information. So when people hear you say something, a lot of us tend to get kind of nervous. Our body language changes, right? We kind of get, some people get flight or fight mode. And this is a problem because every situation is a transference of emotion. So if you are ready to pounce, people feel that. So especially right now with all this NAR stuff, if you are ready on the edge of your seat, ready to defend, we are the best. We realtors are out there protecting you. How could you say this? It's going to come across bad. So you have to already be in a different mindset. So I want us all to sit back for a second and put ourselves in the shoes of a consumer who has no idea what the heck's going on, right? The reality is they're listening to all this noise out there, telling them stuff that sounds good, right? I mean, it sounds good to think home prices are going to go down. Wouldn't that be a dream? I'd go buy a bunch of houses, wouldn't you guys? But it's just not true. Right? If you're about to sell your home, doesn't it sound good to think you don't have to pay half the commission? Doesn't it sound nice? Right? It sounds nice. It's unrealistic. From our standpoint, with we are in it every day, it's ridiculous. But imagine, just forget that for a second. If you were a seller, it does sound good, doesn't it? So we just have to think for a moment. Poor people, right? They're being misled by false information. So we have to look at them like, oh, poor baby. Okay. I want you to, when you think about them, when you're with them, pat their head, like mentally, right? Don't actually, please do that. You have to envision something different. Maybe a child, not that you want to spank, but that you want to give a hug to and say, oh, poor cute thing, you don't understand, because that's who they are. They are just a consumer who doesn't understand. They don't do this every day. And they have been misled by people who want to sell papers and sell media, right? Can we all agree with that? Does that kind of make sense? Now, I think that if we start with that, with the end in mind, right, we will handle an objection in a much different way. And that's going to be most important. So when we realize that, and then we take for the second part of it, that when they're objecting, they're not rejecting us. They're not rejecting our profession. They're not rejecting what we do. They're simply asking us, maybe in a way that's offensive to us, because this whole lawsuit is frankly offensive, isn't it? I mean, us in this room, can we all admit it's offensive, isn't it? We do this for a living. We spend so much time and energy trying to help people, and they have taken what we do and they've twisted it and turned it and made it ugly and stupid, right? So it's offensive. But it's not the people asking the questions that have made it offensive. Those people just don't understand. We have to look at them like, poor thing, right? Poor babies. They don't get it. So don't shoot the messenger, right? Kind of a story. So let's think about that. Everybody good on that? If you're not, too bad. Okay, now it's going to help you a lot though, guys. The one thing I've seen normally when you handle objections, you cannot be in a fight mode. You have to be their partner giving information. But I think that it's such an explosive right now, question about the lawsuit, and then it brings up such emotion in us that it makes handling objections harder for us. So we have to take the emotion out of it. So the more you can get involved in the process of how to handle the objection, the better off you be. You've got to separate yourself from the emotion of the question. I know it's hard, but just go to process. Okay, that's why we're going to go to the process. So let's talk a little bit about two types of true objections. You've got stalls and real objections. A stall is somebody who is just throwing tennis balls at you. That means you haven't uncovered the real objection. Oh, I really can't move right now because I've got this going on. Oh, well, it's really like, let's say I'm buying a house. Well, I really don't like the garage. Oh, well, they're just throwing all sorts of crazy stuff at you. Those are stalls. The reality is you haven't found out what their true objection is, okay? You have to find out what is the real objection. By the way, it's usually money. Today, it also could be time. The reality is it could be timing. Maybe they haven't really found where they want to go. A seller may not want to sell their home because they're scared in this market they won't find anything. They're scared in this market about finance, right? Finance rates. They're scared of giving up a good rate that they have. There's like real stuff. And some of those things also are conditions, guys. Maybe they're really not liking the partner and they want to get divorced. Okay, that's a condition. That's a real thing. So sometimes the objection is truly something you can't get around. So you have to know the difference. But the worst part about it is most of the time people start answering an objection before they really know what the true objection is. And they spend time feeling like they're just in a tennis match, right? Constantly hitting the ball back and forth because they are answering the wrong objection. They didn't go through the steps to find out what the real objection is to start answering that. So these are the steps, guys. They're very simple. There's 6 steps. And you could wake me in the middle of the night. I would not skip one. I am a robot. And you need to be a robot too when it comes to objection handling today more than ever. Because the more you take your emotion out of handling objections, the more skilled you'll be. You can never get emotional when you're handling objections. Whoever gets emotional in handling objections loses. Okay, the only way, hey Brad, to battle emotion, does anybody know what battles emotion, what beats emotion? It's, like rock, paper, scissors, right? What is it? Logic. Logic is the rock or the paper or whatever. Logic beats emotion. You got to learn rock, paper, scissors. Okay. So the thing is, guys, sellers and buyers are emotional typically. So a lot of times if they're adding emotion, you need to pull back and add logic. Okay. Now, the converse is true. If you have a buyer that is completely non-emotional, now this doesn't work in an investment property, okay? But if you're working with buyers who want to buy and there's no emotion, you got to create it. So that's why we try to bring them to, can you picture yourself living here? What is your real motivation? We try to encourage all the emotion we can because it's the emotion that's going to bring out the motivation to do something. So in real estate, more than anything, we really have to know and understand when to use emotion and when to use logic. And if you are not a master of mastering your own, if you let your own emotions go, or you don't know when to turn on your logic, they're going to be running you versus you running them. Because the reality is, we have to oftentimes make people think they're in control. It's kind of like I do to my husband, and he always complains, stop voodooing me. Which I do the sales voodoo on him. He doesn't watch my videos. It's a good thing. He'll be like, I know what you're doing. Stop it. Yes, fine. We'll do whatever you want. But you've got to make them feel like it's their own idea, right? Linda does it all the time. I know. I've seen it. I've seen it happen. Keith's like, I know it happens. Right, Keith? Am I true? He's laughing. He knows it's true. Linda's like, it's totally true.
And you're not what you speak of.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why you're still married. See, it's a good marriage. I know Jules does it all the time to Otto.
God bless us.
Yes. Marriage that makes it work. But that's what we people do, right? We don't want to force ourselves down people's throat. We want to work together, but sometimes we need to guide them and make them think it's their own idea. That's what we have to do, guys. The only real way to do that is through understanding how to use emotion and logic. And mute. Excellent. Okay, so here are the steps to handling objections. We're going to go through them, and it's critical you do each one. If you skip one, this is where it falls apart. The first one is the hardest one for me, because I'm going to tell you, I've been in this industry for 20 some odd years. I know I started when I was 2. And all right, I was 12. So anyway, so when I hear an objection, I've probably heard it before. It's very rare to throw a new objection at me. I really, so I know the answer. I know how to handle it. But I can't, because if I don't make them feel that I have heard them, I've already lost the battle. They have to feel that I've understood and I've heard them. So I have to fake it. I actively listen. I know how to actively listen. I move in and I count in my head and I nod. I'm not even listening to them because it's like I'm counting to myself, like, how long do I have to wait? Okay, count back, Carrie. I'm seriously counting to myself. Really? Because I can't, I'm like dying, because I'm like that, I'm like the dog with the bone. I already know what to say. And many good objection handlers are. But if you don't let them feel that they've got it all out and you jump and answer the question, you've already lost. They don't feel like you listen to them. That's the first problem. Now that they feel that you've heard it, now you got to cushion it. Now, cushion doesn't mean agree, guys. Because if you agree, give up, you already lost that battle. Cushion is, I can see how that would be important to you. I can appreciate how you must feel. Now, yeah, that's true. If that's true, why are we even going to have this conversation? You've already lost that, right? So you got to cushion it. Like, yeah, I can understand how that could be important to you. I can appreciate how you feel. Okay, so I've taken the time to listen painfully, and I've taken the time to cushion it to make them see, I understand how that could be important to you. Now I have to question it because I don't know if it's the true objection or not, right? They threw something at me, but is this the real thing, or are they giving me a stall? Are they throwing something at me to get it off of the real thing that they want to talk about? So that is questioning it. And this sometimes is where you spend a lot of your time. So to make sure that I understand you, or help me understand, or for the sake of clarity, or if I'm hearing you correctly, pick one that works for you. I don't care what it is, but then try to, so for the sake of clarity and make sure I'm understanding you, it really worries you that if you sell your home today, you're afraid that in July, you're not going to have to pay as much in commission. Is that correct? Right?
Yes, and they're gonna say yes.
Well, that might be a true objection, right? Because then I know I got to it. But what if I said, so just to make sure I'm understanding, you're concerned if you sell your home today, you won't find your home, you won't know where to go. Well, I'm not necessarily so concerned about where I'm going to, you know what I mean? It may lead to something else, but maybe I'll find it, but then I won't be able to afford it. Okay, so let me make sure I'm understanding that. So it's not necessarily that it's not that you don't know where you're going. You're more concerned that because you haven't found the home, you don't know how much the home that you want to go to will cost. So if you sell your home right now, you feel that you may be selling it for too little and end up finding a home you love that actually is cost more than you were able to sell your home for. Is that correct? You see what I'm saying? So it's about really uncovering, hey, Chris, the true objection, right? So there's a lot of objections, especially buyer objections, when buyers are like, oh, it's the kitchen's too small. Well, let me understand, just to make sure, what is it about the kitchen being too small that's really a problem for you? Okay, very rarely, unless you're a gourmet chef, do you not buy a house because the kitchen's too small. Okay, that's going to lead to the fact that really and truly it costs more than they thought because the kitchen is small. They're afraid that it's not going to actually be the resale value. But at the end of the day, they think they're overpaying for the house, right? I mean, the truth of the matter is you're going to come out of money on something like that. But so it's really about sitting there and So you're concerned that the resale value of you just keep digging until you get to the fact that they think the home is priced or whatever the fact is. But you do not answer anything until you get to the true objection. Does everybody make sense on that? Everybody good? Okay. Now, once you get to it, there's several ways you can do this. One is reducing to the ridiculous. Now, guys, that one is great for the I don't want to pay a realtor or don't think I have to pay a realtor in July. So let me make sure I understand you, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller. You're concerned that if you sell your home now, and if you had waited versus if you had waited to July, you're actually paying more because in July, you would have been able to have the services of a buyer's agent for free. Am I understanding you? Can you play with me, Joe? Okay.
Yes, I know, but there's a lawsuit going on, so basically we don't have to pay buyer's commissions as of July.
So let me ask you, let's just make sure I really understand this. So you're thinking that in July, someone's going to bring a buyer, represent the buyer, write the contract, do the inspections, be there for all the financing, do the walkthroughs, handle every part of that negotiation from the beginning to end for free?
I had it, that's all.
No, you have to continue.
Yes,
Stay.
yes, I do, and because you just now, as the law states, from everybody that they are reading.
No, go ahead. You stay in it.
That, you know, I just have to pay seller's commission, my agent's commission.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I understand now what's happened. You have gotten caught up in the mass media's disinformation. I am so sorry for that. You know what's really changed? I can tell you. For years, you could have listed your property in a flat rate fee and you could have offered $1 to the selling agent. And now you can offer them nothing. That's what's changed. So you could have offered them $1 and now you can offer them 0. So they're still going to want to be paid to bring someone. Nobody's going to bring someone for free. The difference is going to be that part of the offer is that now they're going to ask probably for more money. Because now you can say how much you're willing to pay for them, right? When you tell me how much you're willing to pay in the MLS, we put it in there. They can't tell me I'm not going to bring somebody because I want you to give me more. That's against the code of ethics. But now, because we won't be able to put it in there, they're going to tell you through the buyer's offer how much you have to pay. So they can actually ask for more. So it might work a little backwards to what you're thinking. Yeah.
How do you explain it? I mean,
But that's why we're here today, right? So does that make a little more sense to you?
Where do I sign?
So would you think, no, hold on. Okay, so let's continue here. So did I reduce it to the ridiculous? Right? Now, let's pause up for a second. We're going to go through some different ways to answer that. The next thing you do is I confirmed it. Did I confirm it? And then I got to close on it. So here's where I would close on it. So do you think it's better to take your home off the market now where you're deciding how much you want to pay the buyer's agent? Or should we wait until July and then let them tell you how much they want to get paid? Which would you prefer? Let's go forward with it. Great news. Okay.
Oh.
Right?
If I could master it.
That's why we're here today. Nobody thought about that, did you? Do you think the buyer's agents are going to work for free? Guys, anybody here do a commercial? Because I did. We negotiated all day long. You know how much they get paid sometimes in commercials? 6 to 10%. Who says it's going to stay at 3%? We might start asking for more on the buy side. Because in commercial, we do.
And when you say asking for more, so me, Jules, can be clear as a realtor, when you say asking for more, basically.
Through the buyer.
The buyer needs for more. That's what I'm saying, so that. If I'm Jules, I have a buyer, Flavia is buying her house,
Mhm.
and then we're negotiating the price.
Mhm.
Does Flavia have to pay me?
Well, this is how you work it out. We'll hit how to do that. We put it in the buyer's broker agreement, how much you want to get paid. Flavia, for all my work, I'm 4%. But don't worry, we're gonna try to get the seller to pay for that, at least all or a part of it. How does that sound? Okay, great.
When you say seller pay for it,
Buyer and seller agree, seller will pay 4% for buyer's agent at closing. Now, Mr. Seller's going, what the heck happened? I was gonna give 2.5%, now they're wanting 4%? Now, it doesn't mean that he can't negotiate, but as market's starting to change, what if we start, not that we are, but what if it starts to go into a little bit more of a buyer's side? Guess what's gonna happen? If we change market cycles and it goes into more of a buyer's market, don't think for a second buyer's agents are gonna be asking for more money. The good ones. But do we care? Because the bad ones are gonna be gone, guys. Right? No one thought of that, did they? It's because nobody in here has done commercial. Yeah, sometimes 6 to 10% we used to get paid. It was good times. That's a big dollar, but that's why you wait all that time, right? That's why people stay in commercial, because it takes forever to close that property. But it was big money. Yeah, they didn't even pay 2 to 3%. Are you crazy? No. And these are investors. They understand. The agent's negotiating their fee. Okay, so let's go back and look at some other ways we can answer things. We could dilute the situation. So let's look at, here's another reduced to the ridiculous. Let's take a look at a reduced to the ridiculous. This is on a buyer's side. I want you all to get comfortable with this one. If you have 2 homes and there's a difference between the 2 homes of say 15,000, this is just a, you take out your calculator. Guys, the days of we're buyer's broker agreement. We are getting paid for our time. Do we waste our time spending weeks showing a buyer? No. I think 2 days is plenty, personally. But sometimes we can't find the property, you know, sometimes we have specific needs. But if you've shown enough homes, you've done your homework, you did your 5 things you must have, 5 things you must not have, you've gone through the funnel process, you've done the ninja, there's no reason at the end of the first or second day, you shouldn't be down to 2 homes. And if you are, and if it's down to the money, and let's say it's 15,000 just to make things easy, and they're getting a 30-year mortgage, you simply take whatever that number is, divide it by 30. I mean, let's say it's not 15,000. Let's say the number is 50,000. You divide that by 30, because it's a 30-year. And then you divide that number by 12. That's $138 difference a month, guys. And there's 30 to 31 days. So for $4.60 a month, a day, you can't even buy really a good cup of coffee for that. You're going to walk away from the home of your dreams for a cup of coffee? Is that simple? That is a reduce to the ridiculous. You guys like that? Okay. Here's a dilute. In the grand scheme of things. Now, this one's, do you really want to walk away from your home, and you list all the things they love about it. But here, you can definitely use the diluted in the instance we just used. In the grand scheme of things, when we really have no idea what's going to happen in June and July, when we know that a lot of agents are going to be leaving the business, who's that going to leave to work with the buyers? Skilled negotiators. Do you really think those skilled negotiators are going to waste their time working for free? It's going to be back to commercial days when they're going to be asking for more money. So I know when I did commercial, I didn't take 2 to 3% for my time. I'm telling you, 6 to 10%, and it was sweet. Now, I'm not saying it's all going to go to 6 to 10%, but you can't say there's no cap on how much we can ask for our commission. So you don't get to set that limit. Now you do, because you have an offer of compensation you put in the MLS. And they're not allowed to say, I'm not going to bring the buyer unless you increase that. That's a code of ethics violation. But that goes away. That protection for you goes away. That lawsuit that everyone thinks is so fabulous took that protection away from you, Mr. Seller. They don't talk about that in the media, do they? Sorry they didn't explain that to you. I feel bad about it. Right? Dilute it. Dilute what they think is the big issue to making their issue a small issue. Does that make sense? I love the feel, felt, found. Does everybody know the feel, felt, found? There is, I know exactly how you feel, Mr. and Mrs. Seller or buyer. I had someone, Sue and Joe, it has to be someone who felt the same exact ways you did. You know, I just saw them the other week and I visited them and they had the same thing about that kitchen. They almost didn't buy their favorite home based on the small kitchen. But Sue really wanted Tom to have that third car garage. And Tom knew that although Sue was saying she wanted to spend time in the kitchen, she really wanted to spend time out in that patio overlooking the fireworks with that glass of wine and the pool and the jacuzzi. And guess what? What they found was Sue was never in the kitchen. She was actually always out in the pool and the patio with her glass of wine, which I'm really upset because she never called me. And Tom, oh my gosh, you should see this whole workshop he's created. And now they have such fabulous, wonderful home they've created and some fabulous equity to boot. So do you really think that smaller kitchen is really going to make the difference for you? You guys see that? Feel, felt, found. You cannot do it about you. The most important thing when handling objections is that you can never use yourself as the example. You have to understand, especially when you're dealing with a customer, you don't count. Because as soon as you use you have taken away all the value of everything you talked away. Because you're just trying to sell them. That's what they think. Even if they love you, they're going to question what you're saying. But if you've used someone else, now listen, Sue and Tom are my cousins and I use them all the time because I've always had real examples, but I never remember anyone's name. So it's always Sue and Tom. Sue and Tom are there for everything. I've never sold Sue and Tom a house, by the way, but Sue and Tom, I always use their names because I could never remember anyone's names. It doesn't really matter. You guys all have real examples of things that have happened that have been very similar to these folks, right? So if you can't remember the names, just come up with people who have names that you can remember. That's not the relevant point, but it has to be people and it has to be a similar situation and they have to have found that it obviously worked out in a great way. Does that make sense? And then most important thing after you answer it. So those are some great ways to answer it. You guys agree? Those are some easy ways. You have to confirm it. You can't just answer it and move on. That makes sense to you, doesn't it? These are tie downs. That answers your question, doesn't it? That would work for you, wouldn't it? Yes, that does work after all, doesn't it? You have to confirm it and you have to get an affirmative. Because if they're like, I don't know, you didn't answer it good enough. You may have to go back to it. You've got to get them to either say, yeah, this makes sense, or I'm still not so sure. Then you know one of two things. Sometimes you just picked the wrong objection. Sometimes you went right to the answering it too soon. That happens. It's totally normal. Until you get to be an expert at this, sometimes you go to answering it too soon. Or sometimes we think we do such a fabulous job answering it, and they just didn't understand us. You know, like sometimes we get too caught up in numbers. For example, if you go into the difference between, for example, if someone says, well, I don't want to pay that commission. I don't want to pay 3%. I only want to pay 2.5%. And you're like, well, in the grand scheme of things, right? What am I doing? Diluting it. What is the 0.5%? If you can make this much money and then you're talking about the 0.5%, you could lose them, right? It depends on the kind of person. If you're talking to a CEO, you're talking to a driver, you're talking to an accountant, they're going to be with you. If you're talking to a high I, if you're talking to an S, a social worker, save the world kind of teacher, they're probably like glazing over. They have no freaking clue what you're talking about. You lost them when you said, well, in the grand scheme of things, turn off, right? So when you go to confirm it, yeah, I still don't quite get that. So that is where sometimes we think it made sense, or they're reduced to ridiculous and they go, Carrie, I don't drink coffee. Right? That could have happened.
Let's go for a second.
Excellent. See, there you go. And maybe they're Prosecco. And then they say, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. And then I'm like, I'm in the wrong house. I'm sorry. You're not my people. Yeah, probably don't do that. Hmm. But does that make sense? You have to confirm it, but you're still not done. The number one mistake, well, there's so many mistakes with handling objections, but you have to close. You have them in the point that, yes, that does make sense. Now you close on it. You've got to finish it off. Closing is, gets a bad rap because people think of timeshare slimy people or used car salesmen or things like that, right? That's not closing. Closing helps people move past tension and indecision. People don't make decisions usually because they're scared or confused. And by the way, God love you. Anybody who goes through listing appointments and people get, I have to think about it. I mean, I know we've all had that, right? There's a couple things that have happened. And I can tell you right now, and if I've been there, I can definitely tell you what happened. But if it's I have to think about it, unless it's a true condition, like they're building the home still in Bella freaking Colina and they haven't decided which home they're going to sell. That was a condition. What could we do on that? But now look, they've listed all the homes with you. Yes. So, and you sold it. Yes. Okay. Congratulations. Okay. But that was a condition. That was a true condition. But sometimes I have to think about it means I didn't get enough information, right? Or I'm confused. You told me too much and I don't have clarity. Anybody in this room, I'm sure nobody, or online, I'm sure there's nobody, any feature dumpers? Does anyone know what I'm talking about, feature dumping? Okay. The perfect example of feature dumping, because we talked about it a lot, the builder. I'm going to show a home and I'm going to show a kitchen. And I walk in and I say, oh, beautiful granite countertops, and you got 42-inch cabinets and excellent storage space. I am feature dumping. Nobody cares. They're not blind. Unless I'm dealing with somebody who's blind, they can see it's granite countertops. They can see it's 42-inch cabinets. That is feature dumping. And what happens is it becomes information overload and people turn off. Feature dumping is the worst. And especially if you're on a listing presentation and all you do is talk, the post, the list track, the this, I'm feature dumping. We have global exposure. We're going to put it in all these newspapers. Feature dump. Jules, you look scared.
Like, how many times have I done it?
Mm-hmm. Okay. What you want to do is features and benefits. So if I say the fact that we are in 85 different countries, that's a feature. What does that mean to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller?
That would give you global exposure.
But who cares? Global exposure is a feature.
That will give your property global exposure, being able to attract more customers.
And we take it to another level. So here, let me give you an example, guys. There's a lot of companies that are in other countries, but I don't consider them global, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. And let me tell you why. Who was I with? Oh, Lisa. Let me share with you why. To me, to truly be global, it's not just that you're in 85 different countries and territories. It's that actually you have not only reports that tell you which offices are actually looking at our properties, but when we see it, we can call them up. Like, for example, when we had a home in Reunion, we saw Zurich Sotheby's had the most hits, and they make us the home of the month. They put us as the only home in the United States. They blog about us. That is global exposure. They help find the customer to purchase your home because we see that they've really got a lot of interest for your home. Do you think that would be a benefit for you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Jules? Terrific. You see, what did I do? I tied you down. That is how you explain a feature and a benefit. Because if I just say global exposure, do I even know that she understood that meant? Right? How many of us probably talk about global exposure all the time, but never really explain what that means to them?
Some people-
I don't know anybody in this room that might do that. Right? But that's the key. You've got to understand. And so it's the closing on that though. You know, when you share something that Sotheby's does, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, every piece of marketing that we do is unique. We don't ever want to have an open house and somebody next door has one and they have the same flyer because we know how unique your home is. So our marketing team will create special pieces to make sure your home is always outstanding compared to everybody else's. Do you think that will be important to you, Keith? You see what I'm saying? I tied him down on it. I closed him on it. That's where the closing comes in. You guys should be practicing closing all the time. I close you guys all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say yes. We know.
I know my husband does too. He drives me crazy. I close my kids. I can't help it. It's like in my DNA. I can't help it. Does it drive you crazy? Because it drives my husband crazy. Just who I am. Sorry. Okay. So there's different types of closes. You have trial closes and you have tie downs. Okay. Sometimes you're just trying to get an idea of the temperature. Like, are they following me? Are they getting what I'm doing? Or sometimes you really just want to get an agreement. So the trial closes, does it make sense to you? Is this kind of what you had in mind? Is this the type of communication we're looking for? Anybody that I've been on a listing appointment with has heard me say that. Is this the type of communication you were looking for, right? Is this the level of service and exposure you were expecting from Sotheby's? That's a good one, right? Nobody has said no, by the way, to that. But we want to know if they say no. And then you can use these and say, if they're seeing someone else, can you please share with me? I know you're going to be seeing other people or you have seen other people. Have you seen this type of level and service and exposure with another company? And if they say, well, I don't know yet, say, well, can you share with me what more do you think they would be offering? They have no clue. See, you have to have something that you've already closed them on to go back to. Okay, now tie downs are the NTs. Doesn't it, wouldn't it, hasn't it, shouldn't it, aren't they, couldn't it, don't you agree? That's the only one that's not the NT. Tie downs are great. That leads to the momentum close. This really would work for you, wouldn't it? Wow, that global exposure you were saying about, that really would help your home, wouldn't it? I think with this amazing backyard and RPR, I think we could get a ton of exposure, especially in the California market. Do you really think that would be a benefit, wouldn't it? Right? You keep hitting it down and then you go to your momentum close. It's the easiest one. It brings you right to it. Now, you can't say it. They have to say it. The momentum close is them saying, yes, let's get going. The momentum close is never you saying, let's get started. It's what do we need to do next? They say it. You don't say it. You get them so excited about all the things you're offering. They ask you what's next. It's really good. But you have to do it right. Questions? Jules, you look like you have a question.
You have to master and be 100% confident in what you're saying to come to that, so that way you can.
This takes practice. Does take practice. I've had years of practice.
On 12.
Well, that's okay.
No,
You just keep
only had 12.
Oh, that's right. Like because I'm 12 years old. That's right. I did this since I was 12. Right. Yeah. Here's the best one. I love the takeaway. You have to be so strong and confident, and you cannot be rude or condescending. And the most important thing about the takeaway is when you use it. So if anybody knows my listing presentation, I do the takeaway in the beginning. And I always do it. If I'm doing the presentation. If I go with someone else, it's always weird because I never know what you want me to say. But if it was my presentation, I'm always going to do it. And I do it in the beginning. After we built our rapport, before we start the listing presentation, I say, Flavia, I just want to say, gosh, I'm having so much fun with you already. And I want to thank you for this opportunity. And I also want to let you know, one of 3 things is going to happen here today. And I'm good with any of them. Now, the first one is you and we're going to hit it off. We're going to agree with the marketing, the timing, the pricing, and we're going to get your home sold. The second one that could happen is that you may not agree with my marketing plan or my timing or my pricing, and you may not think that I'm the best person for the job. And that's okay too. Or the third thing that could happen is I may not agree in your timing or your pricing, and I will never overpromise and underdeliver. And I will thank you for the opportunity and walk away. Isn't that great? It's a good thing. The 3 things that happened here today. Now it's funny because when I went to Ninja, they did it. And I was like, oh my God, I've been using that thing for years. Said it a little bit differently, but pretty much the same exact thing. Because the takeaway is so strong. But that way, when you get to pricing, and if we're not on the same page, I can go, remember when we said in the beginning, if we're not on the same page, I'm not going to overpromise and underdeliver. So I'm just not feeling good about this. And I wish you the best. And I start gathering my stuff. And oftentimes they'll be like, Carrie, wait, we can talk about it. I'm like, you sure? Because again, this is your home. And I need you to be comfortable.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, you've got to get them to agree because I'm not taking over price listing. Now we can try it your way and then write in what we're going to price decrease it. And Keith likes to do the price decrease already, the forms to decrease the prices. Dude, that's good too. You can do that, bring them with you. But you better have them with you right then and there. I like to write them into the listing agreement. So either way, because I don't want to come with the forms assuming that they were going to be overpriced. Well, I assumed you'd be overpriced. So here are my, but you can have them in your dot loop. So it doesn't really matter, right? Except oftentimes you don't have their Wi-Fi. That's always a pain in the neck. That's why I have it printed out. So at any rate, but just to pull a takeaway, oh, there you go. Yeah. Just to pull a takeaway at the end though, then you come across kind of sleazy, kind of like pushy. We women could get away with it more, but still it's a little bit dicey. Guys, don't do it. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be a good look for you. You have to do it in the beginning. And then when you do it at the end, it's okay because you already set the stage. You said, hey, remember I said that? No worries. No biggie, right? However you talk, right? Obviously, my husband says, don't tell the kids to talk like that. You talk like a girl. I'm like, so don't talk like me, talk like you, but you get my point. But it's super important that you set the stage for what could happen right in the beginning.
Can you repeat the option number 2 and 3? Please?
I'll just say all three things. Jules, I have to tell you, I'm having so much fun. Thank you so much for having me. And one of 3 things are going to happen here today, and I'm good with any of them. The first is that you and I are going to completely agree, pricing, marketing, timing, and we're going to get your home in the marketing, get you sold. That's great. Or the second thing could be that you may not agree with my pricing strategy or marketing or timing, and you may not feel that I'm the realtor for you. Or the third thing that could happen is I may not agree with your pricing or timing, and in which case I will never overpromise and underdeliver, and I will simply thank you for the opportunity. Okay.
There was an amazing video at Ninja.
I have it.
Can you send to us?
Yeah.
Awesome, because that has the whole thing, and I love the way she conducts everything.
Yeah.
I kind of remember that I like to watch.
Yeah. She has the
it.
calendar thing and
Yes, I love watching it again. It's just like, I said, oh my.
The one thing I will say, and of course they're 2 actors and they're both from Live and they're amazing. Everybody has to do this within their own personality. She's very formal. I think I'm a bit of a jokester, right? Like, so we all have to do it within our personality. But so find your own style, but I would say, but yeah, absolutely. All right. So here's some seller objections. Oh, wait, those are not the ones. This is the ones, the new seller objections. These are old seller objections that we had, that were good ones, but this is the new ones that I have come up with. The last agent said they would take a lower commission, will you? That's one. But with this lawsuit, we don't have to pay a buyer's agent anymore, right? So I kind of covered the one about paying a buyer's agent. You guys, how do you feel about the buyer agent one? Do you think I kind of covered that one? Okay. Now the last agent said they would take a lower commission. Would you? Does anybody want to try to take that one? Or do you want me to do it? Okay, Alejandra,
Well, the only reason, wait, do I have to be the seller or do I have to be the?
whichever one you want.
I'll be the, just don't like doing it with you, 'cause you're gonna tear me to shreds, but.
You can do it with someone else. You can pick somebody.
No, I'll be good. The only reason why I did is because I had a seller last Sunday that they asked me the same, it's literally the same question.
Okay, so who do you want to be? The seller or
I'll
the,
be
okay, you're the agent. Okay, Alejandra, you were, are you on video?
No.
Okay, come on down. So people can see you.
Oh, really? Sure. There goes shreds, right?
Ah, Come on, I'm not gonna tear you to shreds, really. I'll be nice. No. Let's, oh, but you know what I'm gonna put up here? Hold on. I'm gonna put up here are steps. Okay,
Oh.
Okay. Alejandro, you have been great. I really think what you offer is fabulous,
Mhm.
but you know, 3% is really high. I've had a lot of other agents come in here, you know, they're like the sixth person I'm seeing, and they've all said that they would do it lower. So would you?
No, I would not do it lower, and the only reason why is because, oh, you're gonna say something?
Mm-mm.
The only reason why I don't do it lower is because when you work with myself and Sotheby's, you're getting the Sotheby's brand. You're getting not just myself, you're getting our PR team, you're getting our marketing team, you're getting everything that we have available to you to provide you as a seller to get your property sold. It's not just a one-man show, it's a whole team of experts that are here to get your property sold at the end of the day. And with all the marketing that entails, especially in today's market, with high interest rates, with the competition that we have on the market, with new constructions that are near your home, with everything that we have going on in your market, you need an expert company, top luxury brokerage representing your property to get it sold. And that's why we cannot do it for lower than whatever percentage that other company was offering.
Okay, I loved your answer. You sort of heard me, but then you jumped on it. You never cushioned it,
Okay,
right? And you didn't question it. You went right to the answer. You didn't confirm it and you didn't close on it.
okay.
So you answered it well,
Uh-huh.
but you didn't really, what if I had a different, which why would I? Because it really was about commission, right? But
Well, this instance, this example was it's their cousin who's also a realtor, and they were gonna do it for 4.5%.
mhm.
And I mean, in that instance, well, I guess I kind of just went straight to the jugular and answered it, but. I mean, for that instance, I did tell them, look, unfortunately, although, your cousin or your whatever family member you have is doing it and
Yeah,
I
but
have,
see, you're telling me,
okay.
right? You never cushioned it.
How would I cushion that instance? I mean.
So
would I
let's switch
say-
for a second. You asked me the question.
Okay, so Carrie, your presentation is amazing. I love it. But, my best friend my best friend said that he can do it for 3%. Would you be willing to go down to 3%?
What am I at?
You're at 6%.
Oh my God, for both sides?
Five, let's say 5.
Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong room. Um, let me just make sure that I'm understanding you. I mean, I can certainly appreciate that you're trying to save money. I can understand that, but let me make sure I'm understanding. So you're saying 5% for me and then of course, whatever for the buyer's agent?
Yes,
So I would get 5%, and how much would we offer the buyer's agent?
Well, that's really up to you. What do you think we should offer the buyers?
So maybe we could offer the buyer's agent 3 or 2.5 even, so that would be 7.5% commission?
No, I didn't say that. I said 5% and the other.
Oh, so-
3%.
Oh, so you're saying 5 in total? Is that what you're saying? I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. a little
Yes.
bit. Oh, okay, so the other agent is offering, how much did you say?
3%.
3% for themselves only, and they're not offering anything to the buyer side agent.
No, 3% in total. So they would do 1.5 and 1.5.
Oh, I see. So you're trying to tell me that, and then just make sure I'm understanding you, that you are wondering if I'm willing to work for 1.5% commission to do all of the marketing that we talked about, to put your home in all of those places, to try to get you the highest price with all of the competition, with all of the new builds, with everything going on. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, I can understand and appreciate that you wanted to save some money, but if we're trying to get you the highest price, and then I go into what your answering was,
Mm,
right?
Okay, so by cushioning it, basically, it's just asking the question again for them to repeat
Yeah, but
it.
did you notice I was also reducing it to the ridiculous a little bit,
Yes.
also as a,
You were speaking slower to make it sound
well,
like,
also saying, like, okay, so great, so you're gonna give me 5%, and you're gonna give how much to the buyer's agent?
okay,
You know what I mean? Like, what you're asking for is so ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
And then, no, okay, wait a minute. So you want me to take 1.5% and I have to do all of this marketing? To do all of these things? It's just not even possible. So
how
then
would
when
you
you
then price
answer it, so then after we said all those things that you said, so can you see Alejandro to really truly get you the price that you're hoping to get? Can you imagine that all of that marketing that we're gonna do would cost a lot of money? Can you see that?
yes,
So would it make sense for you to spend a little bit more money on the line where it says commission to get a little bit more money in your pocket? Would that make more sense to you?
yeah, of course.
Okay, great. So then are you ready to move forward with Sotheby's and really get your home sold?
Sure.
Terrific. So then,
Okay.
that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay. Thank you, Alejandro. Okay, so let's move on to, we already did the one about the buyer's agent, but here's one. Here's the priority question, which is Ninja. What is more important to you? The amount of commission you pay, which is kind of what I said to him, or the amount of money you net after the sale? I want you all to learn that. I like to say, similar, what is more important to you? The amount of money it says on the HUD for commission, or the amount of money you get in your pocket? But it's the same thing. If you want to say the amount of commission you pay, or the amount of money you net after the sale. What is more important to you? Who is going to say the commission? That is really important that they understand that. Because it takes the money that you pay in commission to do all the marketing that we do to get them the highest price. Our job at Sotheby's, which is different from everybody else, and I say this, and anybody who's been on a listing presentation with me who's heard me say this, most companies here, if not all, their job is the 3 Ps. Has anybody heard me say this? They place a sign in your yard, they put it in the MLS, and they pray someone else sells it. See, we at Sotheby's don't believe that's our job. We believe in finding your buyer, which is why we've come with a buyer profile, which is why we already know what our feeder markets are, which is why we're going to be spending the money to put your home in front of the most highly qualified buyers, wherever they are throughout the entire world, because we are after getting you the most qualified buyer. That is our job. So we've taken it to a whole extra level. Now, if you're interested in just putting in the MLS, you can just go flat fee. And you'll get, that's one service. But if you really want to find the most qualified buyer wherever they are, you need to be with a company that actually markets to them. Not just in the MLS, but in the Juwai in China, and the Nikkei in Japan, the Financial Times in India. This is what Mansion Global is for. This is why we're in Switzerland, because it's the highest net worth income individuals. We know that they can afford and they love the United States. That's why we actually advertise there. So we are going to be focused on trying to find your buyer. Is that important to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? You see what I'm saying? Then the other question you need to understand, do you think your home will sell for a fixed price or a range based on the marketing and negotiating skills of your advisor,
I love that.
right? That is an important one.
Could you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
Please.
Mhm,
Thank you.
it's important. And then this one. Okay, so here's a new buyer question. Now, here's one that I got from Peyton the other day. Why should I pay an administrative commission on a new construction deal? Haven't gotten that one yet?
Mhm.
I mean, why should I, right? It's the builder's doing everything. The administrative commission is for just that. Whether or not it's a resale or a new build, on the administrative side, we're still doing all the same things. We still have all the same requirements within DBPR to monitor that deal for 5 years, to make sure that we're housing it and keeping your data safe and making sure that for identity theft purposes, we are paying to have the server guarded. I mean, we had to pay a lot of money for all of that. So those things are the same, whether it's a resale or whether it is a new build. The difference is what? That we're not putting it in the MLS, but if it was a new build purchase, I mean, a resale purchase, we don't put it in the MLS either. So there's really no difference. The administrative cost of doing the deal is for all of those things. We still have to make sure we're getting the numbers to the title company. We still have to make sure we're following up and getting the checks paid for. We still have to do all of those things. The process really, whether it's a new build or whether it's a regular resale, are the same on our side. Does that make sense? And just so you guys know, I don't know how many of you were with us. This is, you don't need to share this with the customers, but transaction plan was on a server that was split a couple of years ago, and it went down for like 8 months. It's horrifying because the server got hacked, not our side, the other side. So we had to incur huge costs to get our own server because we will not for 1 second give any opportunity for our data to be hacked. Look what happened to Fidelity not that long ago, right? So all of this stuff we're constantly having to upgrade and pay more for to get more protection over the security and integrity of that data. So just so you know, if you ever get that question, I want you to be armed with that information. You guys feel good about that? Of course, yeah, we have to. Why should I sign a buyer broker agreement? Oh, I have a good one for that. By the way, this value clarification question is the same thing on a buy side or a sell side. Do you believe a home will sell for a fixed price, or do you believe there's a range of value based on the experience and negotiating skill of your realtor? So they've asked you, why should they sign a broker buyer agreement? Okay. So when do you make your money, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer? Do you make your money when you buy, or do you make your money when you sell? Anybody? You make your money when you buy. Because if you bought too high, you got to hope and pray you sell it well. But if you bought well, it doesn't matter when you sell. I mean, if you sell good, then it's double whammy. Cha-ching, cha-ching. You're off to Vegas. But, you know, you have to realize you make your money, and any investor knows that, when you buy. So if you're not being represented at the most critical time in the process of purchasing a home, think about that. Now, there's 5 keys to negotiating a contract. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, how familiar are you with our contracts? You have the price, then you have the terms, which are sometimes more important than your price. Your earnest deposit, your other down payments, your financing, those things are super important, right? The dates, critical. You got to get those things right. Inclusions, exclusions, what's coming with the contract, and hello, contingencies. If you don't get those contingencies right, and then it's not a matter of just putting them in the contract, it's monitoring those contingencies. Now, when you have your own advisor that you have hired, you get to see every property that fits your criteria, whether or not they were offering compensation. You're not going to miss anything. No stone will be unturned. And any property that we determine is a good fit, we're going to do a market analysis because we want to make sure we're going to put you in the highest position to negotiate. We want you to get the best opportunity to buy at the best price. And we can even structure your offer to include all or part of my compensation to get the seller to pay for it. And then, once we've negotiated the best contract for you, my job just begins because I'm your transaction manager. There are so many moving parts, and my job is to handle all of those parts to make sure that your transaction closes smoothly. What do you think, guys? Do you think it's worthwhile paying my fee? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, so you see why I'm charging 4%. And the good news is if we can get the seller to pay 3, you only have to pay 1. Guys, it's a brave new world. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you feel uncomfortable, start for 3. But I don't see any reason why not.
Yeah, in the beginning, should we aim high for 4 now?
Why not?
Yeah, okay.
Why not? I mean, if you want to, and you can say, listen, we can try to get the seller to pay 3% of that, and then you only have to pay 1% for all of these services that I'm providing for you. Right? And if they say no, you can negotiate it. But you're a negotiator. If you can't even negotiate your commission, how can you negotiate the price of their home? Yes.
I mean, this might be, maybe like a rhetorical question or redundant questions, but so I do have a lot of clients in Spanish and.
Yeah.
Flavia,
Claro que sí.
Jules also with Portuguese or anyone that speaks a different language as well. That in many cases, if they're coming internationally, they don't understand the processes of the US and how we kind of do the business here. How am I able to, like in this instance, I can see this working for an American client where we can let them know, hey, you know, this is what I'm offering you, blah, 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 from the buyer side. But for instance, I know for a fact, some of my previous buyers that I closed on, they're going to be, I mean, they're already kind of completely lost with the process and you have to explain them, but they're going to be even more lost with now I have to pay you. So how, like what tools or what tactics can I use, or anyone that speaks a different language can use to kind of,
Are these cash buyers or financed?
I mean, I would say over 50% is going to be finance.
Okay. So here's a couple things. Number one, I have translated the broker buyer agreement and done broker buyer agreements with tons of people from South America, especially Colombia, Peru, Mexico, and Brazil. I've translated into Portuguese too. The Portuguese ones were the toughest ones to get signed. Those are the ones that were like, oh, I don't want to work exclusively with anybody.
And that's the
But-
thing, because again, in Central American countries.
But
and
South Americans were happy to sign it with me. I had not had any, I did not have any problem with Colombians. I did not have any problems with Argentinians. I didn't have any problem. I mean, really, they were really happy to be represented, especially with the gringa. Now, here's something I'm going to come up with. I have come up with a brilliant plan. I'm going to say it's brilliant. Birgit thought it was brilliant. So here's my idea. When I did my shows down in South, remember I had an international brokerage, right? When I took product South America, one of the things that really made a difference, and we need to find out, but I know in Colombia, unless it's changed, it might be worse now that it's communist. If you were getting a home loan, they would only give you up to 50% of that value. Now, unless that's changed, it's been that way for years. Here, how much is Foreign National? 30, 35. 30. You can get 70% of money from the United States. Okay, so what we're going to create, Claire, I'm so glad you're here. Okay, I need your attention for a second because I need your help with this. What I want to create in Spanish is showing the value when you're buying. The investment value is not rate of return on investment in terms of regular equity. It is cash on cash. You're only using 30% of your money. That is it. You can't even get that in your country. Now you're getting your money out to a safe location. We have the transparency of our country, which you don't have in other countries, right? And you're utilizing American money. And you're only looking at the money that they're putting in. That is the only thing you should be looking at. Not the total value. You should be looking at the money that they're putting down. Cash on cash return, not regular rate of return. That is where we should do some really great marketing in terms of investment. And then if you explain, you're going to be their advisor, helping them through the entire process. And the great news is because things have changed here in Florida, you're allowed to be helping them through the entire process. The difference is, I used to charge retainers. South Americans, I charge retainers all the time. $5,000, easy. Typically it was $5,000. And they paid it. So, and they were wealthy. So I'm just saying, like, I didn't find it a problem when you explain your services and explain all the things you're doing. I helped put the financing together. I know you are too. You are the conduit for everything here in the US. So I'm not saying you should charge a retainer too, although I did, because I don't like to work for free.
I mean, is there so is there something, I guess, that we can?
We're gonna create a marketing piece.
'Cause I feel like
Do you want a flyer?
Yes, I definitely want a flyer that you could use, that'd be part of your buyer.
they
Yeah.
want to see what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
Talk about the transparency, talk about the rate on, cash on cash return, talk about how simple the process is, talk about what you're gonna be doing for them. We have the buyer packet, maybe we could put it in Spanish as well. We could do it in Portuguese too. I just need you. Yeah.
The marketing team will do stuff like that as long as you provide.
We need
copy.
the copy, yeah.
'Cause they-
Mhm.
they-
Yeah, but that will help.
I
Mhm.
also think that. Why Central Florida?
Mhm.
Most of the time.
Yeah,
And I think some of the
I love it.
statistics would be based on number of visitors, which, I mean, really, we are in the highest number of visitors in the country here in
Yes.
Orlando. So I just think that's why, the investments and everything else that is going on, the new park at Universal. the
yeah,
whole
Epic
big
Universal
stuff,
for
like,
sure,
just
yeah.
some-
I love it.
But Carrie, what we're dealing in the Brazilian communities is a lot of YouTubers and a lot of misinformation. They say, oh, no.
Oh, I
well,
know.
that we don't need anything because it's all free and it's just like, it's really bad because they have no ethical concerns whatsoever. And they just say whatever, and that is the problem.
Oh, and then we have realtors. that
No, I mean,
are-
that's what I'm
and-
saying.
Right, but we
Yeah.
have realtors, not only misinforming, but it's
Mhm.
like, do not,
Yeah,
instead of three, really, I can do it for one.
yeah.
Remember that little video that is all over the internet? Oh,
Yeah.
Remember? What
Yeah.
is it, the
Yeah.
$500 realtor? Because that's what they do. They're so desperate. They will do that,
Yeah.
which I know that you're listening and you're about to program it and probably to go to your, to your rabbit hole, but it is true for us. That's how bad we are. And no, we do not feel threatened because it is not the same level as Sotheby's. But unfortunately, those are the people that.
And that's the mindset, because they are being bombarded by that, so we need objections.
Well,
to handle.
Remember, on yours, you could say will be paid for by the seller, and if the seller won't pay, then you won't show the property. You can do that too. And then when the seller says they won't pay that, then you can say, the seller won't pay this, will you pay me or no? Because if not, I won't show you that property. We can do that too.
To do a property basis.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think I mean.
We don't need that for Spanish.
I think there should be something, I don't know how it is in Brazil, but for any South American or any Spanish speaking country, there has to be something where we can get over the fact of that full exclusivity thing, because again, here, that buyer broker agreement is tying them down to full exclusivity, and in their countries, they don't deal with
But
those.
everybody in Florida, in the whole United States will have to do it. So it's not gonna matter.
So maybe on
Once
the
July
maybe-
hits, yeah, once July hits, everyone's gonna have to do that. So that's irrelevant. How they're gonna keep track of it, we're still waiting to see, but that's gonna be required. So it's not gonna matter. But for you guys, in terms of them not wanting to pay, that's gonna be your issue. Then you're gonna have the situation where you can say, paid for by the seller. If the seller won't pay, then I won't show the property unless you tell me to. That you'll pay. We can have that verbiage written in by an attorney. Yeah, into the agreement. Mhm. I mean, maybe that's what you need, right? And then you explain to them, listen,
But then you have to
Yes.
negotiate on property by
and then we can
property.
say, listen, the seller is not willing to pay for this, so do you want me to show you or not? Mhm.
And then, but you have the exclusivity, but. as
Right.
long as
And
that
then you would
has-
call this, yes, of course. And then you would call the agent before you show it and say, is the seller willing to co-broke? And we would send the co-broke form first. And if they're not, then you say, I'm sorry, they're not willing to co-broke. Are you willing to pay for my commission on this or no? Because if not, I'm not going to show it to you. Mhm. Well, if that's what you have to do, but you start to work with them and they start to trust you, I think they'll start to sign, but it may be like that in the beginning.
So this way, the contract, if I'm understanding correctly, in the buyer broker agreement, you're just only going to have the exclusivity factor. So the compensation is something that.
It'll have the compensation, but you'll have
The
a
language that you-
language
you
that'll
will
add
create.
that it's you'll only show them properties that you'll get paid for by the seller. They have that in North Carolina because in North Carolina, they have a fiduciary thing, so they have to do stuff like that
Okay,
because they don't want to work for free. Hmm.
thank you.
Yep.
I think they don't get around, the Brazilians with.
No, they won't
with
because
school.
it's gonna be, I think, gonna be backed by FREC, actually, to tell you the truth. I think FREC is gonna be,
It's gonna be a no man's land if not.
no, I think,
They're
I
not-
think FREC is, I think they're even gonna be the ones giving us the buyer broker agreement, is my opinion, but we'll find out. Might start first with Florida Realtors and then be replaced by FREC, but FREC is involved in this.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, all right, well, we've covered a bunch to hope you guys got something from our handling objections. But most importantly, just to sum up, I'm gonna say, here's one last slide. Choose your words carefully and keep your emotions checked. It's all about finesse when you're handling objections. You have to be a master. To your point, Jules, you're right. This is not something, and I would love to have another session, maybe next week, that we could practice. And it's just that you've got to practice this. Like Alejandro had a great comeback. It was great answer, but you have to practice the steps. You have to practice the cushion. You have to practice the listening to it. You have to practice the confirming and the closing. All of those steps are for handling the objections. Because until you do every piece of that, you won't be able to close them and get the listing signed. I mean, for those of you who've been with me on a listing presentation, I don't like to leave unless I've got something complete. I will go for the gusto, always. The teeth. So, but it's because, I don't like to leave any meat in the bone, first of all, but again, it's really about making sure you're understanding exactly what their objections may or may not be. Maria, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask you, can you remind me where can I see the recording again?
My YouTube channel. I'll send you the link.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Well, have a wonderful rest of your week. And we have Ninja Mastery on Thursday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.